Welcome to the program. My name is Vince Nigro. Today on Insights, Martin Rusaki, The Face of Courage, a portrait of Zelensky, what enabled it, why he did it, where the funds are going, the genesis behind it. A great interview with Martin. Hope you join us on Insights. Martin, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You are an artist. You were telling me offset. You also got a board game. We can maybe talk a little bit about that. You've got quite a diverse background. Tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of your artistic background and where you're at today.
Sure. Yeah. I would say I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I have a background in architecture. And after graduating, I moved to New York and then began doing watercolors for designers and architects, inventing games, doing portraits, some illustration. And then eventually some large scale installations as well. So I really don't see any boundaries for my creativity, and I like to explore.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of causes get associated with art. A lot of people use art as a conversation piece. I find that working in the art field and working in the gallery business is that it's amazing how many people that you never would expect are into art or love art or have a connection to a family member. It really is art, the global chatterbox. I just find that art always gives whoever you're talking to, if they're into it, most of the time someone has a connection to art, it just becomes a great conversation.
I agree. I actually maintain that everybody is creative, and we've all been, or many people have been sort of brainwashed to repress their creativity or believe they're not creative. So as soon as I find creativity comes up, everyone wants to participate somehow.
I mean, this beautiful portrait you've done, it's called The Face of Courage, and we'll get in depth in terms of the genesis of it and that nature. As you said, you've done a couple different things, but you've done a previous piece as well that has some history to it, and there's a storyline and how it's built up to this. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. When the war began, I immediately began to think of how I could contribute with art or through art. And what came to mind was the famous Obama portrait by Shepard Fairey. Although it wasn't created during a wartime, it had an enormous impact, and it helped to bolster his campaign. And so I thought I was inspired by Zelensky and his courage, and I decided to do a painting of him and to use that to raise funds for a Ukrainian charity.
Um, the first piece that you were talking about, you were at an event and John Tory saw the piece and he asked you to come to City Hall and display the piece. Tell us.
I just there was a Ukrainian Day, and it was taking place in Casa Loma in Toronto. I attended the event with the painting, and John Tory was there. He saw the painting. He liked it, and he invited me to display it in City Hall, and I was quite honored by that. The rest is history.
Yeah, I haven't seen that piece, but this piece, I've seen a video of it, and we're going to be throughout the program showing the live makings of The Face of Courage. And when you put this piece together, aside from obviously getting awareness and raising funds and the funds going to the cause, what was the genesis when you were doing this? And you have a connection, obviously you're a Polish background, there's a connection to Ukraine. When you were doing something like this, and we'll be showing the video in terms of how it happened live. We'll talk a bit about that. What were your feelings? What was your thought process in terms of your as you were doing this? Did it change as you were doing it? Was it something that kept changing? What was the whole genesis behind it?
Mhm. Yeah, I was quite motivated by the fact that the first painting was sold at auction and raised $5,000, and I immediately decided I would paint another one. And as I was painting it, I did start to feel it brought out emotions. I've never lived through a wartime, although my father, who was born in Poland, did. And I think definitely started to bring out the emotions, and I used colors like red, for example, that for me did symbolize the bloodshed, the needless bloodshed. And as I was painting it, I also started to think about the geography, the map of Ukraine, the people who were displaced by war. And so, yeah, it definitely surprised me to start to feel those emotions as I was painting it. And as you can see, Zelensky here has a very sort of calm, stoic expression, although there is a tear just below his right eye
Right.
there that drips into Kiev. And so I was quite moved by it, and I just kept painting, and the ideas were flowing, and I also wanted to make a an impression, and to think about the symbolism in the painting, the colors, the yellow and the blue, which represent the colors of the flag.
When you look at this piece, obviously it's a beautiful piece, and you were first putting it together, and then it gets done, and you live with it, and you see it. Were your emotions and your feelings change after you've painted the piece, or pretty much the same?
I think once it was done, I think every artist needs to be careful of self satisfaction. I mean, there's a point at which you look at it just um, kind of empirically and as a art piece, and you want to know that it's good and
Right.
done well. So that aspect of it, I felt content with. I think emotionally. I just felt excited. I wanted to a little anxious because I wanted to get it out and share it with the world, and have an impact.
And this piece will also be auctioned off, and funds will be going where to
I haven't yet decided what charity the painting, the original funds from the sale of the original will go to. Although I would like to donate 100% of proceeds from poster sales to medical aid in Ukraine and displaced Ukrainians abroad.
the the video that we've are showing throughout the program and how you put it together. Um, Not many artists do live paintings, and like a lot of people, it's almost like going to a concert. I've been to a few. It's a very difficult thing to do, to paint under pressure. When you were painting that and you were videotaping it, and I understand you're going to be also doing some live stuff with Gatehouse, obviously at some point in the future. Um, what is the feeling that you have as you're painting live with a crowd as opposed to in studio?
Hmm. Yeah, I there are artists who cannot paint with anybody watching, and then there are artists that don't have a problem with it. I'm one of the artists that doesn't have a problem with it. I actually enjoy other people's energy as long as somebody isn't actually interrupting the process. So for me, it's invigorating, and that might be a function of me being an extrovert as well. There,
Yeah,
introverts and
yeah.
extroverts. So yeah, I think for me, I realize that people can get enjoyment from watching the process, from seeing an artist's work. So for me, it is something I feel like I am having an impact if I know that somebody's witnessing the process. Yeah.
While we're doing this interview, and I'm staring at this piece, and the piece is staring at me. It's a moving piece. The color context, the way you've put the different parts of it with the Black Sea and Kiev. Um, as I sit here and I look at it, I see different things obviously in this piece, and it's a very moving piece for sure.
That was my intention. I wanted to tap into concepts, colors, and just compositional elements that would maximize the emotional impact of the piece. Of course, it's fairly stoic, and I think that perhaps works to in contrast to some of the emotions you feel or one may feel looking at it. But yeah, there could have been different approaches. It could have been more sort of dynamic or expressive or splatter like, if you will. But I felt that would be in a way maybe too obvious and too raw. So it's a little more subdued in that sense, I think.
Yeah, well, obviously, an issue that's been with us for a while now. But it's coming on through a third year.
Yeah.
This is where it's been going on, and a lot of bloodshed. And it seems like there could be a ceasefire at some point. Hopefully, in the next. Let's hope and pray that there is a ceasefire and things can get worked out. But definitely, this piece, Martin. It's as I said, as I'm sitting here and watching it, it's a very moving piece, and the proceeds hopefully will go to a great cause. Um, as I mentioned, you paint alive, you paint in studio, whatever. What are some of the things you're working on right now? Are there some other projects that you're working on? You told me a little bit that there's a couple of things you do where you'll see someone, you'll do a portrait of them. Talk to us about some of the projects you got on the go, and they
Yeah, I think portraiture, it's a form of art that's been around for hundreds of years, and I'm keeping it alive. And I think that it's a great medium, and it's a great way to celebrate people, their humanity, their individuality. And especially during the pandemic, I started to realize that there was a secondary pandemic, and that's the psychological pandemic. And that's a bigger problem, bigger issue. And so I thought, well, I can contribute by doing people's portraits, by honoring them, celebrating them randomly, and giving them a portrait. So I began a little project where I go outside and I introduce myself, and I offer to paint somebody's portrait, to interview them, to celebrate them, and give them a portrait. So that's an ongoing project, as well as some other things I have on the go. I like to do cityscapes, landscapes, paint outdoors, and I do invent tabletop games and do game nights
Right.
and team building and facilitation and paint nights as well.
Yeah, you're a very creative person. Um, portraits. It's very difficult to find artists that do portraits, like the old school portraits that you've talked about. A lot of people paint abstract, and I'm not saying they're great. I love abstract, but to find a portrait painter, someone like you, it's actually getting harder and harder to find. I remember years ago there was a friend of mine. He was a portrait painter, and at the time as he was getting older, and I don't know if it was a concept. They paint with numbers a little bit, where they do the number components to it, and
Mhm.
they do it in sections. Is that how you paint, or you just do it freehand as a portrait?
Yeah, there are all kinds of strategies for how to do a portrait, and I do a light drawing using the paintbrush, and the way I like to work is the entire canvas simultaneously. So that means not starting in one spot and then spreading out, but working all over and building it up. And it's called wet into wet as well as the
Okay.
process. So it allows for working more quickly and blending more easily. The Renaissance masters used to work in layers, and it would take them forever. You'd have to wait for a layer to dry and then keep painting and so on. So it could take months versus doing wet into wet painting in a day.
Martin, you've obviously lived in New York. You've been all over the world. Seems like you've traveled quite a bit. You are in Toronto. You are from Toronto. The art scene in Toronto. At one time, Canadian art was very popular, like Painters 11, William Ronalds, the John McGregors, the Lauren Harrises. Like, where is the Toronto scene in terms of the alt culture these days? Do you find it a place that I know it's an expensive city, and I know a lot of artists have moved into the Hamilton area, but where do you find the art scene in Toronto these days?
Over the years, I've seen the art scene evolve a little bit and develop, and especially comparatively to New York City. I mean, you can't really compare New York to
No.
Toronto, but I would say the art scene is coming up. Toronto and Canada, is full of talent. I think it's also a function of culture and conservatism as well. I find a lot of people who are, let's say, more conservative or in the financial world, are maybe a little bit more conservative when it comes to art, buying art, valuing art, um, enjoying it as part of the culture. In Europe, everybody celebrates art constantly, in Italy and France and all kinds of, and all the other European countries. So in Canada, I don't feel art is as ingrained in the day to day culture, but I think it's coming along. Our Toronto, for example, is a great show. But I think, people need to be more educated as well about art. and understand it, because I feel like the average person really doesn't understand art, doesn't get it, doesn't know what the whole scope of art entails. Everyone understands representational art, for example. If it looks real, they get it. But as soon as you go abstract or even semi-abstract, they might have a hard time.
Right. Martin, we appreciate you coming on the program and give us a little bit of insight into the face of courage. Much success on your future, and hopefully this piece can garner some notoriety. And we've helped you maybe expose the piece that eventually get some funds to go towards a great cause. But we appreciate you coming in and giving us a little bit of background about yourself, the art scene, and the face of courage, which is, as I said, as I'm sitting here, it grows on me more and more and more. Maybe I'll buy it.
Thanks so much, Vince. If anyone's interested in purchasing a poster, they can go to supportthroughart.com, and 100% of proceeds will go to Ukrainian charity.
Great. Thanks, Martin.
Thank you.